It's important to distinguish between real and nominal changes in gross domestic product. And the source of confusion is that the price level changes over time. Over time, prices in the economy will generally rise, and so if we measure our income from one year to the next, part of what we're measuring is going to be not changes in real output, but changes in the price, but changes in prices, and changes in the measured level of output due only to changes in the price level. Nominal GDP values output at the current price level and does not correct for inflation. If we want to correct for inflation, we need to figure out a way to compute real GDP. And the way that economists do this is they value the output at a base year prices to correct for inflation. We'll show a little bit of the mechanics of how this works. So consider an economy where we produce two things, pizza and latte. And we're examining the amount of pizza produced and the amount of lattes produced over a 3-year period, 2011 through 2013. And we note that the price of each of these goods has changed over time. We can see that both the quantity we produce and their prices are both rising. So how much of the change in GDP is represented by, is captured by the change in price, and how much of it is captured by the change in quantities? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to compute nominal GDP in each year. In 2011, we produced 400 pizzas at $10 a piece and 1,000 lattes at $2 a piece. Multiply all this together and we get $6,000 in nominal output. In 2012, we produced 500 pizzas at $11 a piece and 1,100 lattes at $2.50 a piece for a grand total of $8,250 in nominal expenditures. In 2013, 600 pizzas times 12 plus 1,200 lattes times 3 is $10,800 in nominal expenditures. So this is how much we've produced each year. The increase from year 1 to year 2 is 37.5%. The increase from year 2 to year 3 is 30.9%. It's important to know that when you calculate the percentage increase, you want to see how much the prices went up or GDP went up from one year versus the next, rather than from one year versus the original year, 2011 in this case. Now, consider instead how we might calculate nominal GDP. And what we do here is we focus on a base year. And in our analysis, we're going to use 2011 as our base year. We're going to consider, we're going to fix the level of prices at $10 per pizza and $2 per latte and see how much of the increase in GDP we can attribute to changes in quantity rather than changes in price. So 2011 is calculated exactly the same. 400 pizzas at $10 a piece plus 1,000 lattes at $2 a piece is $6,000 in expenditure. In 2012, however, notice that what we're doing in our calculation is using the old prices. So what we see is that we manufactured 500 pizzas and 1,100 lattes, and at old prices we had a $1,200 increase in GDP. This $1,200 increase in GDP represents what we would have seen in GDP growth if prices had remained the same. And so what we're doing here is we're correcting for the effect of inflation. We're taking out the effect of the price change for our comparison of GDP from one year to the next. We do the same thing in 2013 using our base year prices, 2011. We built 600 pizzas and 1,200 lattes. At the old price level, this would have increased the amount of GDP from $7,200 to $8,400. So we would see a 20% increase from year 1 to year 2, and then a 16.7% increase from year 2 to year 3. Very different than the figures we got for when we just looked at nominal increases. So when we look at real versus nominal GDP, we put these on the same graph, we can see that the change in nominal affects both changes in prices and changes in quantities, and the change in real GDP allows us to isolate out just the quantity effect. This is the amount that GDP would have gone up if prices were constant. This tells us really how much better off are we. We've got 20% more stuff when we went from 2011 to 2012. And we've got 16% more stuff when we go from 2012 to 2013. So the change in real GDP captures the amount that GDP would have changed if we did not have any price inflation. to easily go back and forth from real and nominal GDP, economists use something called the GDP deflator. And essentially what we do is we calculate nominal GDP divided by real GDP for each year. And once we've done this, we can examine how prices change over time. We can isolate then the inflation rate. So if we list out nominal and real GDP for 2011, 2012, and 2013, we can see that in the base year, our GDP deflator is going to be equal to 100. That's always true for the base year. The nominal and real GDP are the same in the base year. And then if we want to calculate an inflation rate, from 2011 to 2012, our GDP deflator goes from 100 to 114.6. You can see the calculation there. And this tells us that our inflation rate is 14.6%. In 2013, the GDP deflator, you can see the calculation there, goes from 114 to 128, and this is a 12.2% increase. So from looking at the change in the GDP deflator, we can observe how much of the change in nominal GDP is attributed to inflation.